Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Elevate Your Life podcast. We are doing part 2 today of what are your negative emotions telling you. So I thought part 1 was amazing, Cheryl.
It was so good, and we had to split it up into 2 parts because this is important.
It's really important, yeah. Well,
It
we're
is
on number
important.
134 today. And again, you can
Yep.
get these notes at elevateyourlife.com. So if you missed the last one, you can go back into 133 and listen to that. We'll put a link here in the notes so you can get back to that real quick. But there was 10 action signals that we're talking about. So there's some negative. Whenever you feel a negative emotion, what you want to do is look at it differently from this point forward, that it's trying to tell you something. So it's
Yep.
being aware, I'm feeling this emotion and this is what it's telling you. That's what the signal is getting back to me, that what you should be listening to. So let's take number 6, Cheryl, which is disappointment.
Oh my goodness. So this is a feeling of being let down, or like you will miss out on something forever. So it's about expecting more than you receive. And there's that word again, Paul, expecting.
Yeah.
So you've got to be very careful about your
It
expectations.
pops up a lot, that word. Yeah.
Yeah, you bet. So I love this because we're gonna talk about what they are, and then like what it's telling you, a little bit about what it's telling you. So it's telling you that an expectation you had is not going to happen. It's not going to be fulfilled.
Yeah.
And think about that, because don't we have expectations for everything?
Yeah, absolutely. And one of the ones I hear a lot from people is like an expectation that my dad wasn't this. He didn't pay that much attention to me, or my mom wasn't this, or, something that you wanted them to be, but they weren't. That's just one example of disappointment. I mean, we could sit here all day and talk about different types of disappointment, but it really, the key word you said, I think, Cheryl, was standards. What is your standard? So you set a standard for how you wanted that this person or that person or this situation to go, and it didn't happen that way. But
yeah,
I want to get back to the word expectation, because that is the key here, in my opinion. Right. And the first solution to this, again, is to exchange your expectations for appreciation, for gratitude.
Yeah.
To not say, and Tony Robbins goes into this wonderfully, and everybody in the world can agree with, you should be able to agree with this, that you look back at your problems. And Tony, I mean, his mom was an alcoholic, his dad was this, and I mean, there was just absolute horrible situation he was in. But because of those things, he's the person he is today.
Right.
So you can look back and at all this, the saying is, it doesn't kill you, it makes you stronger. It's 100% true. I know you've been through a lot in your life, Cheryl, and you look back, I mean, it didn't kill you, so it made you stronger. I mean, you wouldn't be the person you are today without that happening. As weird as that sounds, because it was horrific when it happened and you were disappointed in different things in life, but you came out a better person because of it.
Right. Absolutely. Absolutely. And then another solution too is that you can feel like the situation isn't over yet. So you might be in the middle of it. So, oh my gosh, well, what can I do? Well, then it's just kind of thinking about having a little more patience.
Yeah, the serenity prayer comes to mind when you mention that.
Oh yeah, the serenity prayer is awesome. That's a great one. And then another solution is you just have to really cultivate an attitude of positive expectancy.
About what will happen in the future. Yeah.
Yeah, about what will happen in the future. So expectancy is you're expecting something, and that's where you're going to be, expecting great things. And that's what I love the word hope, because I think that has everything to do with having great expectations for the future.
Yeah, and I think it's about the future, like you said, not about a certain person or something. But and then the word positive, positive expectations are fine as long as they're put in a positive way and about your future and not about someone else. So,
yep,
we just handle disappointment now. Everyone that feels disappointed out there, you don't feel disappointed anymore.
No, and you have a little bit of a different way to look at it. Let's talk about one that I think it's Brene Brown. She talks about this a lot, and that's guilt. And she puts guilt and shame together, with which I think is so amazing. I think that I don't know a woman that has not felt guilt at some point in their life.
Really?
Oh no, I don't.
What are some examples of that you've run into?
Absolutely not. Well, it could be anything that um, you did in the past that because you change and you grow and you learn, right? Well, if you've done something in the past that doesn't, and it says it right here, right? You do something in the past that's violated one of your highest standards. So you set your standards, and your standards could be whatever your standards are. But if you violate those, I think you feel that guilt. I think a lot of times as moms, we feel guilt. Well, I wish I could do this for my child. I wish I could do that for my child. Oh, I should have done this, or I should have done that. Right. And so then that guilt starts, and you have to be very careful not to get caught up in that. Right. Not to get caught up in the feeling of guilt, and then the guilt turns into shame. And then, my goodness, it's just that is a hamster wheel that if you're on it, please listen as we talk about these solutions, that you can really and really just understand that guilt, again, Paul, it's a story you're telling yourself, isn't it? I mean, what's really the meaning of what's making you feel so guilty?
Yep. There's something happening, you're giving it a certain meaning. And
Of course.
that meaning is I shouldn't have done that, or I should have done more.
Right, absolutely. So a solution: acknowledge that you have violated a critical standard you have for yourself. So of course, and that's the whole thing with shame, because when you feel guilt, shame sets in, and then what do? Don't say a word, and you hide it, and you don't want anyone to know ever. But you've got to realize that that you made a mistake, or that you violated one of these standards that you have, and perhaps it would help to talk about it with somebody, right? And I think when you talk about things and get that out, I think that's where the real healing begins.
Now, do you think a lot of women that you know, or situations you know, did the guilt come? Was the guilt a standard they had that wasn't met, or was it? Do a lot of people not make up guilt, but be like, I feel so guilty about my friend dying, or something like that, where you put it like, well, what did you have to do with that? Like oh, I should have been there at that moment and to catch the brick
Of
that was
course,
falling from the roof.
and not even like that, but as a mom, if something happens to your child, you're like, well, I should have been there.
Everything's your fault. Yeah.
I should have. Absolutely. Absolutely. And so to get over that, it's very, and so it does. I personally don't think it always has to do with the standard. I think it has
Right.
to do with the way that you look at things, and the blame, right? The blame that you put on yourself, and then the guilt that you feel for that. Even, and it could be just that you weren't able to, be there or stop something that happened, right? Or you did something that you really don't believe in, but you did it, when you were younger. And, I just think all of those things really can play into guilt, and really do play into guilt.
Sure. And but we're talking about big things. This also can apply to little things like I had too many carbs today.
Of course.
So now you acknowledge that you violated critical standard, which is I'm not going over 20 grams of carbs a day, and you did that. And absolutely commit yourself to making sure that this behavior will never happen again. I'm never going to let that happen again. But knowing that that's something for sure that you did wrong. And then here's the cool thing. I love utilizing the guilt, utilizing pain to drive you, to hold you to that higher standard. Because I did this, I'm not going to let it go. I'm going to use that as my fuel to never do it again.
Yeah, absolutely.
I love that.
And that definitely, and remembering, because I think guilt and shame both are torture. I think you torture yourself with those things. And so just remembering, the way that you felt at those times, I feel like it goes a long way in making sure that you don't do things again that would go against the high standards that you've set for yourself.
We all make mistakes, but if you keep on making the mistake over and over again, that's the real problem.
Right. So the next one, I feel like, is another one that I hear a lot about, as I'm coaching women, as I'm talking with women, and that one is inadequacy. Of course. And it's where you're feeling unworthy, that you can't do something, or that, that you think you should be able to do it, but for some reason you can't do it. And yes, but I also think that it also depends on what you've been told about yourself in the past, right? And the meaning you're giving that. I mean, if your mom or your dad or a good friend or whatever it was told you, oh, well, you're worthless. Oh, you don't amount to anything. Oh, you're never going to amount to anything. I think the feelings of inadequacy absolutely kick in.
Yeah. So as we grow up, and it was what, before the age of 7, our belief system is established.
Yeah.
Crazy. So once you hit 7, your belief system is established. And if you've been told, so you start saying to yourself, I am worthless, or I'm inadequate, because your parents or someone else has been telling you this, and you start believing that, and you make that one of your core beliefs, that's when we got a big problem.
Right.
The cool thing is you can change your beliefs in 1 second.
Yep. Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
So what is this message? What's the message behind when you feel inadequate?
Well, the message is just that, you might not be to the skill level that you want to be right now. But the exciting thing is you just, you grow, right? That's one of our main needs, one of our 6 needs that we put that very high at the top, is you just grow, and then you're more able to do the task if that's where you're feeling inadequate, or just really to realize, your worth, like that you are of infinite worth. I love that saying. And just know that, that if there is something that you're struggling with, that you absolutely can do that. And you just have to, the solution right here is, am I really inadequate, or do I just need to become more resourceful? Right.
Now, is this in your experience, is this a general feeling, like I just feel inadequate, or I'm trying to bake this cake and I can't do it, so I haven't developed that skill yet?
No, I think there's a couple of things. If that's it, I think it's easier to deal with. But if you just have an overall feeling of worthlessness, like I don't amount to anything, I think that's much harder to deal with. And I think then it's not just one thing that you're feeling that about, but it's like a whole plethora of things that you're feeling that about.
Yeah.
Right. And I think that that's where we get into, to some real struggles, and to some.
It's got to be the story they're focusing on now. So change your story, change your life, write a new story.
Of course.
Come up with some new beliefs, and stay focused on those, not on the old stuff.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
I love finding a coach. Well, so some solutions to this. We've gone over a few already, but I love the finding a coach thing. I think it's very difficult for us to see ourselves. I can see everybody else perfect. I can tell you how to fix anything, but fixing stuff in myself is another trick. I need someone else to point it out to me, because we all have blind spots. So I can't emphasize that enough.
Right. So number 9, we've got overload or overwhelm, which is an interesting one to me, Paul. And that's really what you figured out a while back, that's kind of that's what you would always feel.
Yeah. Let me handle this one, Cheryl, because I'm an expert.
You go ahead. Because I don't ever feel like that. I don't have a to-do list, Paul. I'm fine.
It was great. I mean, I always, so the big things, I've talked to Tony about this, and we try to establish, so everyone has an emotional home. So it's super, super important that you figure out, I mean, of course we all feel happy. Sometimes we all feel sad, but where do you usually land up throughout the day? Yeah. And I had to think about it. I'm like, well, I'm not stressed. I'm not worried. I didn't know what word to use. He's like, how about overwhelm? I'm like, boom, that's it. Like, I knew instantaneously that was the emotion I feel, and he's like, well, didn't you tell me you own your own business? I'm like, yeah. He's like, so who makes up your schedule? Well, I do. Well, who makes up your to-do list? Oh, I do. Like, no one's putting pressure on me at all to do anything. except myself. So I'm holding myself to these super high expectations. And then I got a to-do list of 237 things today, and of course you feel overwhelmed because it's just, it's absolutely ridiculous. So it's, it's just a bad feeling of depression or helplessness. And,
well, it turns into that too, I think. I mean, you feel overwhelmed for so long, and pretty soon it's like you're overwhelmed because you can't get everything done, and because, oh my gosh, my list. And I think
and
that,
the
that
more
lens,
overwhelmed you feel, I found, the less you get done,
of course,
which is
you're
now you
sad with
feel
no
even
energy.
worse or more
How can you do
overwhelmed.
that? Yeah. Again, it's the hamster wheel that you get on that it's hard to get off of, right?
Yeah.
And the message here is that this emotion just might be telling you that you need to reevaluate what's most important, and that maybe you're dealing with too many things at once, or you've got a to-do list that's what, Paul, 138 things on your to-do list. I have like 2. I like to make sure I get them done.
Well, and I love the 80-20 rule. John Maxwell teaches this, where you got 10 things on your list. There's only 2 of them that are going to move you really forward in life. The other
Right.
8, if you don't get them done, you don't get them done. But the problem is people write the book at number 10. You
Right.
got to put the 2 big rocks at the top and work on those 2 things. And in most cases, the other 8, you need to do them, but they're not going to move your life forward like the first 2 will. So I love that. I always keep that in mind. And being in the Marines, every single day they gave you more than you could do. And they were always testing you. Can you prioritize? Because you can't get everything done in the day. There's nobody in the world that can get everything done in the day. There's always things that got to be pushed off tomorrow. So you don't feel bad about pushing it off to tomorrow. I feel good about that. I set good priorities in the top 3 things. I got 3 things now I do a day, not 300. I always get those 3 things done, the 3 big rocks. And I decide those 3 big rocks the night before. So I know what the 3 things I'm going to get done today is, because I figured them out last night.
Right. That's perfect. That's so perfect.
And you can change it anytime. Like, one of the biggest things is that I decided that bliss is going to be I'm going to be happy. I'm going to be blissful. I'm going to always, be uplifting to other people. So I just decided never to feel overwhelmed again. And literally just deciding that, honestly, Cheryl, made all the difference in the world. I never felt overwhelmed again.
Yeah, that's fantastic. And then just a couple others. You can break things down into simple steps. So just do consistent.
That's huge for me. Yeah.
Steps. Yep. And
Super
then
simple steps.
And then like you said, tackle the first things first, like the number 1, number 2, maybe even number 3.
Eat the frog.
Yeah. I love those. Well, number 10, I think a lot of people started feeling during COVID if they did not feel it before, and that is loneliness. And the biggest one from that, I think, is being separated from others, being isolated. And I think a lot of times people can isolate themselves, or just the circumstances that they're in. They become isolated. And I love this though, because it's simple. Feeling loneliness just means that you need to connect with others.
Yeah.
Right. That's the message that you need to just know that, you just need to reach out there and make a connection of some sort, become part of a community. Which I think has become huge in the last little bit.
Yeah. And, so we have a saying that your problem is never the problem. It's the root cause that's the problem. So, we hear about depression levels going up through the roof after COVID because of all the shutdowns of kids especially. I mean, kids don't understand what's going on. They're locked in their house. They can't go see their friends. Like, Mom, I'm going to see my friends. You can't, because there's something flying around the air. I mean, kids don't understand that. So that feeling of loneliness came in. No, I'm sorry. Yeah, the loneliness came in, not the feeling of it. The sheer fact that you can't see your friends is not a feeling; it's a fact.
Yeah.
That led to depression. So it's people are like, oh, there's a chemical imbalance with this, and we're gonna do a whole podcast on depression because it's our super hot topic for Cheryl and I. But we got to find the root cause, and one of the main causes of depression is loneliness. And we know how fixing this should not be that difficult. Just reaching out and connecting. Identifying what kind of connection you need in your life. I think that is important to establish.
Yeah. So Paul, as we're and that there's the 10, right? There they are. And I was just thinking as we were going through these, that really our goal setting course that we did for the new year can help with so many of these,
Yeah.
help with so many of these feelings and especially the overwhelm, the loneliness, because we have a whole community that we do that with. And I know you can find those notes at elevateyourgoals.com if you'd like to join us in our goal setting and just kind of keeping track of what we're going to do throughout this next year and really finding out what it is you want. Because I have so many people, Paul, that just have no clue what they want. And so that's a really big part of that goal setting. Well, Paul, there it is. Oh my goodness, the 10 action signals and the messages behind them and the solution to master them.
Yeah. And we understand, you listen to this podcast and it sounds all great, super great advice. But when you're in the moment, feeling any of these 10 things, I know there's times, Cheryl, you called me. I mean, you were hotter than a pistol about something or whatever. And I'm like trying to use some of this stuff on you. And you're like, I was going to use some of this stuff on you. You even warned me before I started that don't even tell me there's another meaning behind this, because that is.
Don't ask me what the meaning. Yeah. Don't ask me what the meaning. I don't want to hear that nonsense.
So we understand it's easier said than done.
Yeah.
But just that awareness and knowing, that this feeling is just a signal back to me, and this is what the signal's telling me, and this is how I can fix it. So I think this is such a valuable lesson, these 2 podcasts, Cheryl, for people to listen to, 2 or 3 times, just to really get it down, look at the notes, really be like, okay, because you want to be prepared if any of these,
and practice.
Yeah, and practice. I mean, these emotions come into play. And there's, now that you know them and the things to fix them, you can start taking some proactive approaches so that you'll never feel that way, because you've already exchanged your expectations for appreciation and things like that. So a lot of these emotions you can never feel again. So again, the quality of your life is the quality of the emotions you consistently feel. So our +1 again for today is the same one as it was for last time. It's to elevate your life, become aware of the negative emotions that you are feeling and what those emotions are trying to tell you.
Yes. And as you are feeling those emotions and start to work on them, to become aware of them, you will be able to move from fine to fabulous.